All right, let's dive straight into the incredibly powerful and sometimes completely hidden world of stored energy. Today, we're figuring out exactly which safety rules apply to your equipment by navigating the decision matrix between general PUWR regulations and the much stricter PSSR. To do this, we're going to take a virtual walk through a typical auto garage and then pop into the coffee shop next door to uncover the explosive hazards hiding in plain sight. It is a really fascinating look at how ordinary, everyday objects can hold extraordinary amounts of power. So, consider the sheer invisible danger hiding right there on the shop floor. I mean, we walk past standard commercial vehicle tires all the time without a second thought. But a typical commercial tire sidewall, which has a surface area of roughly 2/3 of a square meter, when inflated to just 75 psi, is actually withstanding over 34 tons of force. 34 tons. That is a staggering amount of stored energy, just waiting for a weak point. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly why we need such strict rules and procedures for stored energy. Because think about it, if that tire fails, maybe it's following a bad repair, or it's fitted to a split rim wheel, or perhaps it has suspected sidewall damage from being run underinflated, that massive 34 tons of force can be released explosively. According to safety guidelines, this kind of rupture often blows out at an angle of up to 45 degrees from the face of the sidewall. This is exactly why any operator inflating a tire absolutely needs a long enough airline hose to stand completely outside that likely explosion trajectory. Okay, let's move from the tires over to that 11-bar Blue Point air compressor sitting in the corner of our virtual garage. First things first, we need to know exactly what constitutes a pressure system under the law. The regulations define it as a system comprising one or more pressure vessels of rigid construction, along with any associated pipework and protective devices. So it's not just the tank itself, right? It's the entire connected system containing the compressed gas, steam, or air. Well, how do you actually know if your specific equipment is legally a high-risk system? It really comes down to a super simple rule of thumb calculation. To figure out if your compressor requires a statutory inspection dictated by a written scheme of examination, you just have to do a little bit of math. You simply multiply your compressor's maximum pressure, measured in bars, by its internal volume, which is measured in liters. You can usually find both of these numbers stamped right there on the manufacturer's data plate. And here is the absolutely crucial number you need to remember: 250. When you multiply your bars by your liters, if your calculation results in a figure greater than 250 bar-litres, you have crossed a major regulatory threshold. You instantly trigger a whole new set of legal safety requirements, simply because the volume of stored energy is now deemed high enough to cause serious injury or even death in the event of an unintentional release. This basically creates a fork in the road for your business operations. If your system stays under 250 bar-litres, you follow the general provision in maintenance rules under PUWER 1998. It's relatively straightforward. But if your system goes over that 250 bar-litre mark, you are legally bound by the Pressure System Safety Regulations 2000, commonly known as PSSR. You've officially moved out of general maintenance and into the strict territory of mandatory statutory inspections. Now, crossing into PSSR territory means you are legally required to have a written scheme of examination, or a WSE. And listen, this isn't just some casual checklist you print off the internet. It is a formal, binding document that strictly sets out the nature and frequency of statutory inspections for your specific pressure system. It has to adequately describe the entire setup, including all that pipework, the vessels, and the safety devices, and it must specify any special measures necessary to prepare the system for a safe examination. Under this written scheme, a designated expert is required to carry out thorough checks at those specified intervals. Their duties are incredibly clear. They have to review and confirm the WSE is suitable, produce a detailed written report for every single examination, and immediately notify the owner or user of any required repairs. And most importantly, they possess the authority to identify actions in case of imminent danger. That means they can effectively stop you from using the equipment entirely until it's deemed safe. So who actually does this high-stakes work? The law requires what is called a competent person. Now, this isn't just the handiest mechanic in your garage. A competent person absolutely must have the necessary knowledge, the relevant experience, and, this is key, crucial independence from your daily operating functions. Usually, this means bringing in an independent insurance company engineer or a surveyor, or sometimes an expert recommended by the equipment manufacturer. They have to have the authority to pull the plug if things aren't right. And hey, don't forget, the paperwork is just as vital as the hardware. Once your competent person has carried out their thorough examination, they are legally required to make a written report, sign it, date it, and send it to you within 28 days of completing the check.
And that report doesn't just go into a dusty filing cabinet to be forgotten. You must keep a copy of the written scheme and these examination reports available on site at all times for health and safety inspectors to review.
Actually, as a quick, highly practical tip for that compressor in our virtual auto garage, even between those major statutory inspections, you have daily responsibilities. You absolutely must make sure you drain the air receiver regularly. You see, compressing air naturally creates condensation. And if that water just sits in that metal tank, it causes internal corrosion. That corrosion silently eats away at the rigid vessel, compromising the structural integrity of the tank and drastically increasing the risk of an explosive failure under pressure. Okay, let's step out of the garage for a second and grab a coffee next door. This quote directly from the compliance requirements shows us that the cappuccino machine generating steam is legally considered the exact same type of hazard. The regulations clearly state that plant generating steam under pressure in an enclosed volume constitutes a pressure system. That means the friendly local barista steaming your milk is operating highly pressurized equipment that falls under the exact same foundational safety logic as the mechanic next door. It honestly doesn't matter if it's the compressed air in your garage or the pressurized hot water and steam in your coffee machine. Both store potentially explosive energy. Both pose a significant risk to health and safety if they fail. And both absolutely require a written scheme of examination and a thorough check by a competent person if they cross those regulatory thresholds set out by the PSSR 2000. It's the exact same science and the exact same risk. So I'm going to leave you with a really crucial, actionable thought to take back to your own shop floor today. Look around at your air compressors, your steam generators, your pressurized vessels. Have you calculated their bar liters? Do you know for sure if you fall under PUWER or PSSR? And most importantly, when was your pressure equipment last drained, and when was it legally examined by a competent person? Because at the end of the day, it's not just about compliance, it's about keeping everyone in the room safe from the incredible hidden power of stored energy.